when my husband married another woman and threw me out of the house. My name is Emily Carter, and this is the story of how the man I loved with every beat of my heart destroyed my world on a cold, rainy Tuesday night in Chicago. I never saw it coming. We had been married for 14 years. 14 years of building a life from scratch, of late-night talks, shared dreams, and quiet sacrifices. I was 22 when I met David in that little corner cafe on Devon Avenue. He was 28, tall and ambitious, with a charming smile that could light up the darkest room. He had just moved from a small town with big plans to start his own logistics company. I was a quiet, soft-spoken girl working as a receptionist at a busy dental office. From the moment he asked for my number on the back of a napkin, I felt something shift inside me. I knew my life would never be the same. We got married 6 months later in a simple ceremony at the local community center. No extravagant reception, just close family, heartfelt vows, and the promise that we would face every storm together. And we did. The early years were tough. David drove trucks for long hauls, sometimes gone for weeks at a time. I worked extra shifts, cleaned offices on weekends, anything to save for our first real apartment. When our daughter Sophia was born, my heart exploded with joy. David held her tiny body and whispered, "I'm going to give you the whole world, princess." For a long time, it felt like we had everything we could ever need. By the time Sophia turned 10, David's logistics business had taken off. We moved from our cramped 2-bedroom in Rogers Park to a beautiful 4-bedroom house in Skokie with a big backyard where Sophia could ride her bike and chase fireflies. I left my job to become a full-time mom and homemaker. David started wearing sharper suits, expensive watches, and talking about expanding the empire. I was so proud of him. I supported him every single step. I cooked his favorite meals every weekend, kept the house spotless, and never complained when he came home exhausted at midnight. But somewhere along the way, I stopped noticing the cracks forming in our marriage. He began spending more time on his phone, smiling at the screen in a way he hadn't smiled at me in years. When I asked who he was texting so late, he would mutter business calls and change the subject. I convinced myself it was nothing. Marriages get comfortable. Men get busy. That's just how life works, right? I was so wrong. It was a freezing October evening when my world began to collapse. Sophia was at a friend's sleepover. I had spent the afternoon making David's favorite pot roast with mashed potatoes and gravy. He walked in later than usual, carrying the faint scent of an expensive cologne I didn't recognize. He barely looked at the food on the table. "Emily," he said, his voice cold and detached, "we need to talk." My stomach twisted into knots. Those 4 words felt like a death sentence. He didn't even sit down. He stood there in his crisp button-down shirt, staring at me like I was an inconvenience he needed to handle. "I've met someone else," he said flatly. The room started spinning. I grabbed the edge of the kitchen counter to keep from falling. "Her name is Lauren. She's different. She's ambitious, educated, modern. We connect on a whole other level. She understands my vision for the future." Every word sliced through me like a blade. "David, we have a daughter. We have 14 years together, a home, a life. 14 years of what?" he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "Of me grinding every day while you stayed home. I need a partner who can stand beside me in meetings and boardrooms, not just cook dinner and fold laundry." I couldn't breathe. Tears burned hot in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall in front of him. "I gave up everything for you," I whispered, my voice cracking. "My career, my dreams, my youth, everything." He looked away, almost bored. "I'm marrying Lauren next month. The house is in my name. You and Sophia can stay until the wedding. But after that, you both need to find somewhere else." The words hit me harder than any physical blow. "You're throwing us out." "I'm not throwing you out," he said coldly. "I'm moving forward with my life. You'll get some settlement money, enough to start over somewhere." That night, after he moved to the guest room, I sat on the cold bathroom floor and sobbed until my throat was raw. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, tired eyes, faint lines around my mouth. Hands that had prepared thousands of meals for him wiped away our daughter's tears and held our family together. Who was this broken woman looking back at me? The next 30 days became a living nightmare. Lauren started visiting the house openly. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, confident, stylish, with sharp features and an Ivy League education. She wore designer clothes and heels that clicked across my hardwood floors like she already owned the place. She would lounge on my couch, sipping coffee from my favorite mugs, casually discussing their future plans, while I stood in the kitchen like a ghost in my own home. Sophia, only 14, was devastated. At first, she didn't understand. When the truth sank in, she cried for days. She screamed at her father, calling him a liar and a traitor. David yelled back that she was being childish and would understand when she grew up. I barely slept. Every night I lay awake, replaying our memories. The way David used to kiss my forehead before long drives. How he held me tight when my mother passed away. The promises we whispered to each other during our honeymoon in Niagara Falls. How could the same man who once called me his everything now treat me like I was disposable? The wedding day arrived faster than I could prepare my heart for. It was a lavish event at a luxurious downtown hotel. I wasn't invited, of course, but the photos flooded social media. David in a sharp black tuxedo, grinning like he had won the lottery. Lauren in a stunning white designer gown that probably cost more than our first car. They looked perfect, happy, like our 14 years together had never happened. That same evening, 2 movers showed up at the door with legal papers from David's attorney. I had 48 hours to vacate the house. I begged. I cried. I reminded them of all the years I had poured into that home. The walls I had painted, the garden I had planted, the memories we had built. They looked uncomfortable, but said it was out of their hands. The house was legally his. Sophia and I packed whatever we could fit into my old, reliable Toyota Camry. Clothes, a few pieces of jewelry my mother left me, old photo albums, Sophia's school things. Everything else, the furniture, the dishes, the life we had created, stayed behind. We drove away as heavy rain poured down. I looked back at the house one last time through the rearview mirror. The lights were on. Lauren was probably already planning how to redecorate. We lived in a cheap roadside motel for 2 weeks. I sold my gold necklace and earrings just to pay for the room. During the day, I searched desperately for any job. At night, Sophia would cry herself to sleep, asking why her daddy didn't love us anymore. One evening, I completely broke down. I called David, my voice shaking with desperation. Please at least help with Sophia's school fees. She's your daughter. His response was ice cold. I'm starting a new family now, Emily. You need to move on too. The line went dead. I wanted to disappear that night. But when I looked at my sleeping daughter curled up on the motel bed, I knew I couldn't. She needed me more than ever. Even if her father had abandoned her, I would never abandon her. Slowly, painfully, I began to rebuild from nothing. I found a tiny studio apartment in a tough neighborhood on the north side. I took a job as a night cashier at a 24-hour gas station. The pay was low, the hours brutal, but it kept food on the table and a roof over our heads. I enrolled Sophia in public school and started taking online courses at night to refresh my old skills so I could find something better. There were days the loneliness felt suffocating. Days when I saw David's new photos online, luxury vacations in Miami, a new sports car, Lauren's pregnancy announcement with their first child together. Each image felt like someone twisting a knife deeper into my chest. But something inside me started to shift. One stormy night, sitting on our worn-out couch in that tiny apartment, Sophia looked at me with tear-filled eyes and asked, "Mom, are we going to be okay?" I pulled her close, held her tight, and spoke the words I needed to believe myself. "Yes, sweetheart, we are going to be more than okay. We are going to be strong. We are going to build a life that no one can ever take away from us again." That moment became my turning point. I stopped wasting tears on David. Instead, I started fighting for our future. I got certified in medical billing and coding. I worked harder than I ever had in my life. Within a year, I landed a stable job at a local hospital with benefits and decent pay. Sophia started thriving in school. she joined the debate team and discovered a fierce, brilliant voice that reminded me of the confident young woman I had once been before I lost myself completely in marriage. 2 years after that devastating night, I stood in our new 2-bedroom apartment, small, but clean, safe, and entirely in my name. No man's signature on the lease, just mine. I had lost weight from stress, and from the gym classes I started attending to clear my mind. My hair was styled in a fresh, modern cut. I wore clothes that made me feel good about myself again, and slowly I began smiling more real smiles, not the forced ones I had worn for years. David tried to come back once. It was during the holidays. He showed up at my door, looking exhausted and older. Lauren had left him shortly after their baby was born, taking a large chunk of his money and the new house in the divorce. He said he had made a terrible mistake. He missed us. He wanted to try again, for Sophia's sake. I looked at the man who once held my entire heart and felt nothing but pity. I told him calmly and firmly, "You didn't just destroy our marriage, David. You shattered your daughter's trust. You tore apart our home. You can't fix that with a simple apology and some tears. We don't need you anymore. We're doing just fine without you." He left with his shoulders slumped, defeated. That night, Sophia and I ordered pizza, put on a fun movie, and laughed until our stomachs hurt. For the first time in years, the laughter felt genuine and light. Life isn't a fairy tale. There are still difficult days. There are still quiet moments when I miss the security and the illusion of forever. But I have learned one of the most powerful truths a woman can ever discover. You can be completely broken, thrown out of your own home with almost nothing, and still rise stronger than before. I am no longer the quiet, exhausted wife who begged for crumbs of affection. I am Emily Carter, survivor, mother, fighter. And if my husband ever marries another woman and throws someone out of his house again, I hope she remembers what I learned the hard way through tears and pain. Your worth was never in his hands. It was always in yours. You just have to find the strength to take it back.